Hello, this is Elizabeth from Houston Harp Music, and I'm going to show you a few more things on MuseScore. So this video is going to show you how to add, delete, change, rename instruments if you are creating some sort of a duet or ensemble piece. So here I have a partially done score of Dona Nobis Pacem that is arranged for 3 harps. I used the subtitle section to write my 4/3 harps, which is kind of what I like to use that for. And as you can see, all 3 of these are harp. If I use my playback to hear what it sounds like, it's all going to be synthesized harp sounds, so I can get a general idea of what it will sound like. Note that the MuseScore does not know how to play harmonics, so those will just sound regular. So there's a few things like that that won't quite be right, but you get enough of an idea to see if your arrangement or composition is going to be what you're going for. So if you have already created your document and you did not put in the instruments that you wanted, maybe it was you just had one line, it was originally going to be a solo and now you've decided to make it a duet, you can edit your document after it's already created by going up to your file. Make sure I'm on my MuseScore. So if you go to Edit, and then you can go down to Instruments. And this will bring up the same box that we used to originally choose what instruments we're going to have. So here, if you've watched my video on how to use the setup wizard, kind of goes through how this box works. But I could get rid of a staff if I wanted harp 1 to be treble clef only. I could take this staff and remove it, or I could add another instrument in if I decide that I want, let's say, violin. I can take violin and add that. I can take my violin and move it up to the top. So I can really play around with all of this. I'm actually going to remove that because I don't want a violin in this particular one, but you can adjust it from here, either add or remove instruments or staffs. Okay, now to rename them, you can actually, when you have this, this is my score, but you're eventually going to want to give your players parts that are just theirs. It's a lot easier to read, especially if it's a long piece, just your part rather than have to, when you get to the end of the line, move your eyes and find where it's supposed to be, especially because this piece is going to be several page turns for the conductor, and I don't want my players to have to do page turns. So right now I just have the score. And I'm creating my piece in the score. I'm putting in all my little notations and things. But once I kind of have it the way I want it, I'm going to go up to File, and I'm going to go to Parts. When you click Parts, it's going to give you this box here, and I'm going to click New All, and it has automatically generated Harp 1, Harp 2, and Harp 3 using the 3 harps that I created here. If you want to rename them, you can. Let's say that Harp 1, instead of calling it Harp 1, I want to call it, let's say this is my lever harp part, and then Harp 2 and Harp 3 are pedal harp. I could do that. So instead of calling Harp 1, it could be lever harp. And then once I have those all created, then I'm going to hit OK, and it now gives me this box right here. I've got my main score, which is what I'm looking at right now, and then I have tabs I can click on, and notice they have the same names that I gave them. Here's lever harp, which this probably wouldn't be a very good part for a lever harp because it goes pretty high, but in our demo it puts the name of the part right up here on the top, and we've got just the parts for that harp. My piece is obviously not done. 56 measures of rest at the end. But it creates it automatically. Notice my harmonics that I had in my score are automatically transferred over here, although these were down below, they're in the wrong spot. So I'm going to have to actually fix them by hand. So after you generate your parts, you'll still need to go through and double check that everything is still where you want it to be. See, in my original one, I've got the harmonics down below. So we've got this one. Here's my Harp 2. It automatically does the measures of rest if you have those. And there's Harp 3. So, and there's my titles all on the top. So this makes it really easy to create ensemble pieces, duets, and have both the score and the individual parts for people. You can also choose where the breaks happen. I like to do that in my parts. I haven't written enough here to make it really obvious, but I could, let's say that this part was going to be played by a student who's very new. I can go up to Layout, Page Settings, and I can increase the size here. Here I've kind of made it fill up the space, and I can apply just to this part, or I can apply to all parts, make all of my parts larger. So if I do that, now they're all just a little bigger. I can zoom out so you can see. It fills the page a little bit more. All the notes are going to be a little bigger, easier for a student to read. And I have applied that to all of the parts. Now, on my score, it's still smaller. In fact, maybe even on my score, let's say that I want my score even smaller because I'm trying to fit it on 2 pages like a crazy person, and now it's really small on my empty measures. But that way the conductor's not having to turn pages as much, so you can control those individually. Your score be nice and small and compact, and each part be a little larger. Now, if you further want to adjust this, let's say that this is just a little too crowded, or let's say that there's a page turn and you really want it to be in a specific place, go over here to Breaks and Spacers, and this button right here, Line Break, you can drag it to wherever it is you want it to go. For example, here's the end of my phrase, and then here's the end of my second phrase. So I'd like this measure to be bumped onto the next line. Just makes it a little bit easier since this is kind of a newer harpist playing this. So that way I've got my phrase 1, I've got my phrase 2, got my phrase 3, runs onto here a little bit because it takes a little bit more space, but I can space it out individually for what's going to work well with this person. And notice we have our measure numbers. So when I, as the conductor, say, okay, everyone go to measure 27, which for me is on my, it's at the beginning of my 3rd line, but for everyone else it's going to be somewhere else. Measure 27, oh, that I'm not playing at measure 27. This one, measure 27, okay, here's 29, 28, so this is 27. And then harp 3 is not playing at 27. So each one can find it easily, even though their parts don't have the same layout, because those measure numbers are there. So this is a really awesome feature that MuseScore has to help you easily be able to create duets with your students, ensembles. If you want to do harp and violin with your friend, you can easily create it through here, which is pretty awesome.